Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Today we are going to be going over the top 10 rifles in Fallout New Vegas. Now these are non-energy weapon rifles, and originally I wanted to do this with top 10 just guns in general, but there was a lot of guns that I wanted to include on this, so I'm going to be breaking it up at least into 2 separate videos, maybe 3. This top 10 is also not in any particular order too, so these ones do move around depending on when you get them, how often you have ammo for them, at what point in the game you're at, and so on and so forth. Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have the Assault Carbine. Specifically the Gunrunner's Arsenal version, because that is a better version than the regular Assault Carbine. Now the Assault Carbine is kind of an interesting weapon because you usually don't get it until late game, but it can be surprisingly powerful even though its stats don't look super impressive, at least in terms of its damage. It starts out with a base 13 damage, you have to have 75 guns and 3 strength in order to wield this, but it does have really high damage per second because its rate of fire is incredibly high. Its crit chance is very low, however that's not such a bad thing because the way crit chance works is a little bit strange. The base crit chance is really bad, and having extra luck won't help it that much, but having perks that increase crit chance can, because they actually apply separate, at least some of the time. Action point cost is fairly low, and since this is fully automatic in the VATS build, it actually fires out multiple rounds per shot. Spread isn't that great, but it is an assault carbine, so you're not going to be using it at super long range, at least most of the time. You can certainly spray it at medium and close range very effectively. And this does hold 24 rounds in it, which is pretty good. It also has a decent amount of item health, although it is fully automatic and it can break that fairly quickly, especially if you're using the 5mm surplus ammunition, which just breaks weapons quicker. The other major advantage that the Assault Carbine has is that it has a base minus 10 damage threshold on it regularly. And if you throw in armor-piercing rounds into this, rather than going up to 15 like almost every other weapon, this actually goes up to negative 25 armor-piercing, which is pretty good. That pierces through almost everything in the game. There's very few armors or enemies that have more than 25 damage threshold. And if you do get the Gunrunner's Arsenal version of this, it can have 3 modifications on it as well, where you can have an extended magazine, taking it from 24 rounds to 30 rounds. You can get a forged receiver to give it even more health, so it breaks even slower, and you can also get a lighter bolt to give it an even faster rate of fire, which is pretty good. Moving on to our number 9 spot, we have one of my all-time favorite weapons in Fallout New Vegas. This is the RATSLAYER. The RATSLAYER you can get in Brockflower Cave, and this is the unique Varmint Rifle. This one requires 0 guns and 3 strength, so almost any build can wield it effectively. It does decent damage per shot, although not incredibly high damage, just like the Varmint Rifle. It does okay damage per second, but where it really shines is its 5 times crit chance modifier. So almost every bullet from this, assuming you have reasonable luck, is going to be a crit, and it's going to hit fairly hard. It also has all the modifications of the Varmint Rifle can already have, as well as it is lighter than the standard Varmint Rifle and has more health in it. So you have the extended magazine taking it to 8 rounds, the night vision scope, which can be very useful, and the suppressor on it. This is a fantastic weapon if you get it early on enough. You can actually run right to this at the very start if you would like, and that's usually what I do because the RATSLAYER is an amazing starting weapon. It does tend to fall off later, although it can still be pretty good all throughout the game just because of the bullets it uses, since it takes the 5.56 round. There is a ton of different options with that. You can throw in hollow points, you can throw in armor-piercing rounds, you can throw in the match rounds, and you'll have a pretty well-rounded weapon that can kind of deal with everything, and this works really well as a budget sniper rifle. Moving from one sniper rifle to another, coming in at number 8, we have Christina's COS Silencer Rifle. This is a unique rifle that you can get in Old World Blues. You can get this near the Little Yangtze camp. It's actually by a building right next to it where there is a rifle just set up, as well as I believe that there is Steady and maybe a Stealth Boy there. This was Christine's rifle that she was planning to shoot Elijah with, and this shoots the 308 round just like all the sniper rifles. This requires 75 guns and 6 strength. This does pretty high damage per shot, pretty good damage per second, has a 2.5 times crit modifier with very high crit damage, so hitting crits is very effective with this weapon. It also has incredibly low spread. It does have low item health overall though, just like basically all the sniper rifles do, so taking weapon repair kits could be useful for this, or if you have jury rigging, that can also be very useful for this. And since we're talking about sniper rifles, we have another sniper rifle. This is the GOBI Scout Rifle. You can find this in the base game. You do need to have 100 lockpicking or a way to get into the locker, and to get that 100 lockpicking, you can kind of cheat it out with magazines, especially if you're running the perk comprehension. This is once again another 308 caliber gun, so it has a lot of ammo options. This requires 75 guns and 6 strength. This does good damage per shot, very high damage per second, and this does have a 2 times crit modifier, which is great, as well as it has 80 crit damage on it, so hitting crits with it hits extremely hard. It also is unique in that it holds 1 extra round than a standard sniper rifle. It also has the upside of taking only 24 action points per shot with this, making it extremely strong in a VATS build. It also has above average health for a sniper rifle. It's still going to break fairly quick, but that isn't so bad if you're carrying around weapon repair kits, or once again you have jury rigging. Coming in at number 6, we have PACIENCIA. I hope I'm saying that one correct this time. This translates to Patience. This is a unique hunting rifle that comes with the Gunrunner's Arsenal DLC, and this one you just have to buy inside of Novak. It does cost a decent amount. This is also another 308 gun, so you get a ton of different ammo options. This one requires 50 guns and 6 strength. This one does high damage per shot, although not super high damage per second because of the rate of fire from it. However, this does have a 2x crit modifier, and this does a whopping 110 crit damage, which is absolutely insane. That makes it so you do massive damage whenever you do hit a crit with this, even more so if it's a sneak crit, because sneak crits are doubled. So you go up to 220 damage just off of that, not based on the regular damage that you're already dealing with the rifle. This one is also extremely accurate, and it does have a unique feature where it zooms in whenever you ADS with this weapon. This zoom is about 3.5 times from what I could gather, so it's about the same as the regular hunting rifle if you put a scope on it. This one also uniquely only holds 3 rounds in it, so you will have to be reloading this one fairly often. However, if you're just using it in a dedicated sniper role, that shouldn't really be that big of a deal. As well as the sights are a little bit offset, I believe. I think they're slightly to the left. This one also has pretty good item health, and hunting rifles aren't incredibly hard to find, so you probably won't need a perk like jury rigging, although if you were going to get it, then this one is extremely easy to repair. Coming in at our number 5 spot, we have All-American. This is the unique marksman carbine that you can find inside of Vault 34. This can be a rather difficult place to get into because there is a lot of ghouls inside of it, and they are very high-leveled ghouls, as well as there's a lot of tight corridors. However, you can also get the Vault 34 armor here, which is probably one of the best light armors just in terms of defense. All-American is found at the very bottom in the armory. This requires 100 guns and 4 strength in order to wield. This one does pretty good damage per second, coming in at a base 26. It also does extremely high damage per second, especially if you have the grunt perk. It is a 5.56 weapon, so there is a ton of different ammunitions that you can put in this. You can put armor piercing, you can put hollow points, you can put match rounds, surplus rounds, 223. There's a lot of options for this, which makes it highly versatile. It does have pretty standard crit damage at only 26, and crit multiplier of only ×1. However, where it really shines is its action point cost, coming in at only 13, making it so it's one of the best action point build weapons that you could absolutely use in the game. It also is extremely accurate, and it has a scope on it, which is fantastic. It holds 24 rounds in it, and it does have good item health as well. It can be a little bit difficult finding marksman carbines throughout the wasteland, however, weapon repair kits, and if you have jury rigging, solve that issue pretty quickly. Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have the Anti-Material rifle. Specifically the Gunrunner's Arsenal version of it, because that is the best version since you can modify it. The Anti-Material rifle is an amazing weapon. It is the only 50 cal weapon in the entire game. This one requires 100 guns and 8 strength, so it is a very hefty weapon. You're going to need to invest in a decent amount of strength in order to aim it fairly accurately. This does massive damage per hit, even more so with some of the unique ammunitions you can load into it, like the explosive 50 cal rounds. You could also load in armor piercing if you want to just ignore anything's defense, or you could throw in something like incendiary if you think you want to do some fire damage on top of this. This does low damage per second in comparison to its damage per hit, because it doesn't really make fast follow-up shots with that big bolt. Does hold 8 rounds, does a massive 110 crit damage. Spread is incredibly low, it is extremely accurate, and it already comes with a scope, which is nice. This weapon does have kind of low item health, but that usually doesn't matter because you're not going to be firing too many shots from the 50 cal. And by the time you can get the 50 cal, you probably have a decent amount of money to either buy weapon repair kits or buy the materials for weapon repair kits, or to just have jury rigging to where you can fix this up, or just pay other NPCs to fix this up. You can get a couple mods for this. You can get a custom bolt, giving it a slightly faster rate of fire, which is still not a huge increase to the weapon, but it is a bonus. You can get a suppressor on it, making it a little bit quieter, which is kind of nice, I guess. And you can also put the carbon fiber parts on it, which is the big one, which reduces its weight by 7, because this weapon does weigh 20. So you can take it down to 13, and then if you're running the heavyweight perk, you can cut that in half once again, if you would like to. One other thing that I should probably mention with this weapon is that not only the weapon is heavy, but if you're playing on the hardcore mode, the ammunition is also extremely heavy. So be sure you got enough weight to carry around one of these things. They are excellent for killing basically anything in the game, so long as you've got distance. Even if you don't have distance, they're pretty devastating at point blank range too. Coming in at number 3, we have another Gunrunner's Arsenal weapon with the Medicine Stick. This is the unique brush gun. This one requires 6 strength and 100 guns. This one you can just buy from the gun runners. It does cost you a lot of money. A lot of these unique weapons cost you a lot of money if you do need to buy them. This one fires the 45-70 round. This one does high damage per hit, pretty high damage per second. It has much nicer iron sights, in my opinion, than the standard brush gun. This one does high crit damage as well, coming in at 78, although it does have a standard crit modifier of only 1 times. does have fairly low action point cost. This one's pretty good in an action point build too, and this one does have low spread. This one also holds more bullets than a standard brush gun, where a regular brush gun will hold 6, this one holds 8. The only somewhat downside with this weapon is that it doesn't have incredibly high item health, especially if you like using the custom ammunition, firing the semi-wad cutters through this, because that will break the weapon fairly quick, and this does only have 200 item health. Not a huge deal if you carry around weapon repair kits, or again if you have jury rigging. Beyond that, the skin also looks really cool. I really like that it has a dream catcher on it, on the stock. I wish you could see it a little bit more when you're actually using it in-game, but I think it is still a really good looking weapon. Coming in at our number 2 spot, we have the Survivalist Rifle. This is a unique rifle in the Honest Hearts DLC. You get this from the Survivalist, Randall Clark. You find this in a bag at the red gate, which is next to his skeleton, and then you can just pick this up right out of there, so you don't actually have to do any sort of quest in order to get this. You just need to go to the location. This is the unique service rifle, although instead of firing the 5.56 like the regular service rifle, this shoots the 12.7mm round, which is a little bit less common than 5.56, at least to find picking up off the ground. There's still quite a few vendors, like the Great Con vendor, that usually sells a ton of rounds like this, so if you're looking for ammunition, there are a couple ways to get this. This requires 4 strength and 75 guns, so actually not very high requirements whatsoever. This does good base damage at 48, although it can go even higher because of the grunt perk, maxing out at 69 damage, very nice. And it does really high damage per second, and it has an average crit modifier. It also has very low action point cost, only coming in at 20, so it is very strong in an action point build as well, and it is extremely accurate. This weapon does hold 10 rounds as opposed to the 20 rounds that the regular service rifle holds. That's okay because it does reload fairly quick. And this weapon does have a lot of health, so it takes a very long time for this to break. The only somewhat downside, and it's not even that much of a downside, to this weapon is its ammunition type. The 12.7mm round is pretty good, at least if you're fighting non-armored targets, because hollow point rounds are absolutely devastating in this to non-armored targets, but that's about the only unique ammunition you have. Even if you have the hand loader perk, you still don't really get any other unique ammunition, so you're going to be using regular ammo for armored enemies. That's not such a huge deal, though, because this weapon does have enough base damage to just punch right through armor, too. I guess the other downside is that its sights are a little bit misaligned, but as long as you just line up with the right sight, then you're fine. Or if you get a mod to fix it, then you're fine. And then coming in at our number 1 spot, we have this machine. This machine is the unique battle rifle, which is kind of weird because this was in the game before the battle rifles were added, but that's okay. This weapon you get from an unmarked quest called Dealing with Contreras. You get this at Camp McCarran, where either you can side with Contreras and do his little side quests and he will give this to you, in which case you can still keep him as a vendor, and he sells a lot of 308 rounds, which can be very useful because this is a 308 weapon. The other way you can do this, which is a far faster way of getting it, but you lose Contreras as a vendor, is to turn Contreras in. You can actually get this at the very start of the game so long as you have 50 science or a way to cheat out 50 science, or you're just willing to do Contreras' quest, which I don't believe you need any requirements for. So this weapon requires 6 strength and 75 guns. This does a pretty good 55 base damage, although this can be buffed by the grunt perk, which is pretty great, so it goes up even higher. It has pretty high damage per second as well, and it has good crit damage at 55. It also has very low action point cost at only 22, so you can use this very well in an action point build. The only somewhat downside to this weapon is that it's not the most accurate. I believe out of all the weapons we've talked about, it's the second least accurate, just behind the Assault Carbine. Now, it is quite a bit more accurate than the Assault Carbine, but it's not as accurate as the rest of the weapons that we have talked about. This does hold 8 rounds, and you can reload this incredibly fast. Its sights are also a little bit strange because it just has the standard aperture sight, which is not really the best for combat, but hip firing this weapon is extremely strong, and this weapon does have a ton of health to it. As well as this weapon also takes the 308 round, which is extremely versatile. So if you need to switch this for armor-piercing rounds in it, you can use that for bigger enemies, or if you want to take hollow point rounds to punch through weaker enemies or less armored enemies, you can absolutely do that. Or again, you can go with the hand loader perk and load in the jacketed soft points, making it so you have pretty high damage per second with that as well. These were my top 10 rifles in New Vegas. Tell me what your top 10 are down in the comments below. Next time we might be looking at pistols, or I might decide to group all of the other weapons together. Tell me your thoughts on that. Would you like to see pistols as separate ones, and then maybe we'll group the shotguns, SMGs, and heavy machine guns? Or would you like to see them kind of get their own list? Unfortunately, we can't really do a top 10 SMGs and top 10 shotguns because there's not enough of them, so those will probably have to be like combined into one list at the very least. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye!